Cristiano Ronaldo. The name needs no introduction. 850 plus goals and 250 plus assists, winning almost every single major trophy in football, achieving over 300 plus individual honors, a renowned brand that transcends professional sports and into global stardom. A billionaire that has reached the pinnacle of earthly existence. Surely an invaluable asset for any team or industry to have. But that's not the case with arguably one of the best athletes to have ever existed. Even after conquering 3 countries, 4 if you count Saudi Arabia, pushing his national side to their first ever Euros, leading a historic 3-peat with Real Madrid, and winning the Ballon d'Or 5 times, there is still a question raised against him, a question that has only grown more vocal since he left the Spanish capital in 2018, an inquiry that's divided the media, fanbase, and any individual that's participating in football. Does Ronaldo make teams better or worse? The 2021-22 Man United season is a fascinating case study for those who want to understand the consequences of poor planning and the underlying truth beyond ordinary stats, but also the aftermath that follows from fielding Ronaldo past his prime. After a disastrous season at the helm, it seemed only fitting that the players got the first blame. After all, it's their performances that determine the fate of the club. But in an unconventional manner, the spotlight and all fingers pointed at Ronaldo for every credit and criticism. He was arguably their best player in the entire campaign, netting 24 and providing 3 assists, a stat that saw him finish 3rd in the Premier League's top scorers list with 18, being responsible for 31% of the Red Devils' total goals. Where would we be without him was the question that trended each time Ronaldo pulled off a remontada to save United from another misfortune. But indeed, where would United have been had they not signed Ronaldo? Because his last few years have been an interesting enigma, having the stats to back his contribution but overall team performance suffering. Questions were raised on Ronaldo's service to clubs. Some regarded him as a liability, a hindrance, a leech that fed off his teammates to raise his own self-glory. Others viewed him as the foundation for the team's attack, a relentless forward with an unprecedented thirst for goals that did anything and everything to achieve the objective for the team. One side pictured him as the hero pulling his team in the face of adversity, the other deemed him as the adversity causing chaos. But which view is correct? Let me introduce you to the 2 factions at hand. First, the Optimists, the Ronaldo make teams better faction. These regard Ronaldo as the cornerstones for the teams he's played in, including Juventus and Man United. They defend Ronaldo with every possible opportunity and view him as the reason for the success of his teams, and even in failures such as Juventus and Man United, they attribute it on the team and view Ronaldo as innocent. In fact, some even go to the extent of saying he carried those teams in times of failure. Hadn't it been for him, they would have been far worse. They tend to ask the question, where would this team be without Ronaldo? This is where the second faction arises with an answer. The pessimists, the Ronaldo make teams worse. They view Ronaldo as a leech that feeds off teams for his individual honors and achievements. Although he might score a couple of goals, they believe that his teams would be far better off without him, as he disrupts the balance and harmony of the squad. They attribute the recent failures of Juventus, Man United, and to some extent Portugal as his fault, and mostly point that his Real Madrid success was due to a star-studded squad that would have succeeded with or without him. They tend to reply to the question, where would this team be without Ronaldo, with, in a much better state? That's where the 2021-22 season prompts a fascinating case study. The underlying numbers reveal, if I might say, a paradox. The summer of 2022 saw Ronaldo entangled in a transfer saga, as both factions fought hard to make a case, but generally the foundations of their ideas remain consistent even 2 years later. The Optimists use tangible stats to support their argument, which bears some logic. Just look at the rough numbers Ronaldo has produced over the past few years. He has been the top scorer of every single team he's played at. He ended up being Juventus' top scorer of the previous decade, although merely playing from 2018 onwards. Goals had never been in doubt when he's around, and he never failed to deliver. Hence, how can you blame him when he's fulfilled his obligations? Ronaldo was blamed for the Juventus decline, but what more could he have done? The same blame followed him at United, but he scored 24 goals and provided 3 assists in his return season. Take away those contributions and United would have been down the top 10, with no European football. And to prove this theory, they point out that United hadn't won a single Premier League game in which Ronaldo hadn't played in that season. The "where would we be without him" argument takes shape in this form. But this is where the argument falls short, and the pessimists stake their claim. It doesn't consider for the following factors. 1. It doesn't account for replacements. This argument views Ronaldo as mere additive rather than someone who has to take responsibility in front of goal. In other words, scoring goals is anyone's responsibility, as long as they are in the front line. Ronaldo was always likely going to score at least 20 goals a season for whichever teams he plays, so his personal feats at United, Juventus or Al Nassr aren't surprises at all, and United would have still scored goals without him. The 2 seasons before and after Ronaldo departed frame the perfect picture. The season before he came, they scored 109 goals, with 1.78 goals per game average. But in 21-22, they added 2 forwards, Ronaldo and Sancho, but somehow got detrimentally worse, scoring only 70 goals and a 1.42 goals average per game. In the season after Ronaldo was demoted to the bench and left by January, the team scored 103 goals again, with Rashford stepping up with 30 goals. And even in the tumultuous 2023-24 campaign, other players like Scott Buckley and Garnacho started to provide. The goals kept coming from one source or another. This shows that if you had taken away Ronaldo's 24 goals and 3 assists from United, you would have taken him away from the team too, and his replacements would have contributed to the team's goal tally. With this logic, take away David De Gea's 127 Premier League saves that season and United should have been relegated. But that wouldn't have been the case in reality, as a replacement would have entered the scene. Same logic with Portugal and Juventus. A lesser goal tally might have been registered from whomever replaced Ronaldo, but the team's general structure would have evolved entirely, and that has ramifications for both the team's attacking and defensive playstyle. Which leads us to the second factor. It doesn't account for the teamwork that goes before each of Ronaldo's goals. The Optimists failed to consider Ronaldo's general impact on the team's playing style. Cristiano becomes the focal point of all incoming attacks, which means most of the chances created by the likes of Bruno end up going straight to the number 7. Throughout his career, attacks seem to concentrate towards him wherever he plays, but the problem is, with Ronaldo's limited build-up play, he ends up taking balls away from other forwards, and yet not giving back either in terms of chance creation or defensive work rate. So hypothetically, removing Ronaldo from any team doesn't merely take away his goals, it also dramatically changes the attacking trajectories and defensive structure. Could this have wider ramifications? Consider the United squad again. Most of the individual parts seem to be excellent personnel, but mash them all together into one team, they become dysfunctional. Could that be linked to Ronaldo's presence? Progress forward and let's introduce a new concept to evaluate Ronaldo's effect in his past teams. Here lies Club Elo rating, a rating system that determines a team's overall strength and performance by awarding points for each win, but it varies based on the opponent. It gives more points if a club beats a stronger team, say Bayern Munich, rather than a smaller team like Burnley. The higher your Club Elo team's rating, the stronger your team is. When viewing the ratings of Juventus and Man United from the point Ronaldo joined and left, a striking pattern starts to emerge. Juventus and Man United suffered a sharp decline from the moment Ronaldo joined. Juventus enjoyed a short rise but then a large crash after signing him. Man United had the sharpest decline throughout the decade after Cristiano returned. Correlation isn't causation though. The decline of teams when Ronaldo joins can't all be attributed to his effect, but it still shows the dark shades of grey his present cast is. Patterns of decline seems to follow him wherever he goes. At his time in Turin, he's been accused of disrupting a harmonious team. As pointed out earlier in Factor 2, all attacking routes lead to Ronaldo. Before Cristiano signed, their stellar 95-point title win saw Juventus score 86 goals in Serie A. The following season, they signed Ronaldo, and ended up with a total of 70 league goals with a lower 90-point tally. Ronaldo was their top scorer with 21 goals, but he also ended up taking 170 total shots, the highest accounting for 28% of their total, more than twice what Paulo Dybala had taken in second place, 64. But this is where the difference arises among Ronaldo and others. What Ronaldo gives with his goals, he takes away with his defensive work rate. But the converse is true for his teammates. What Paulo Dybala had compromised in offense, he compensated with his defensive work. With 19 presses per game, he had twice as much as Ronaldo's 9.4 presses per 90, one of the lowest in Serie A then. In his homecoming season at United, he was responsible for scoring 31% of the league goals, quite a big achievement. But how does it hold up to the team that didn't have Ronaldo before? The previous season, United had a 73-goal tally in the league on their way to a second-place finish. Somehow, the players that should have been the final piece of the jigsaw ended up scrambling it. Yet, he still maintained his prolific stats, but at the cost of his team. During October of that season, Ronaldo had the lowest presses per 90 of any of the league's forwards with 270+ minutes, averaging just 2.7 presses per 90. The next worst player was Saint Maximin, with 5.2, but still twice as much as Ronaldo's. His final season stats were still as bad, with 7.33 presses per 90, the lowest from his fellow squad mates, and placed him in the bottom 1% of all Premier League forwards. United were certainly in a better place without Ronaldo playing, however a higher win and goal scoring rate. All this pattern isn't a coincidence, it reveals a larger truth of the overall narrative. Stats don't lie, Ronaldo does score goals, but he also leads to the concession of them. Most, if not all, of the defensive errors start from the ball passing the front line of press, and Ronaldo is the first line. Reliance on him comes at the cost of team cohesion. This can be traced back to his Real Madrid days. Some of you might have a vivid memory of this match. During the Champions League semi-final El Clasico of 2011, Madrid suffered a 2-0 loss against Barca. Mourinho had regressive defensive tactics, with his aim being getting a draw and deciding matters in the return leg. The offensive game plan was to attack Barcelona with long balls that were sent to Ronaldo, the sole striker. But Ronaldo had to ask the midfielders behind him to push forward more, as he was left isolated. In the end, Messi scored a brace and Mourinho was shown a red card. In the press later on, all Madrid players had an order: criticize the refereeing decision and keep all other thoughts within the squad. Ronaldo followed the first instruction, but ended up making a subtle dig. As a forward, I don't like to play like this, but I have to adapt to what the team asks me. Jose saw this as a rebellious act and dropped him against Zaragoza in the next match. But before the second leg clash, this is the conversation Mourinho had with Ronaldo in front of the players. "You, Cristiano, come here, I've got something to tell you. I'll say this to your face. You complain that we play defensively here, but do you know why that is? It's your fault. As you don't want to close down the wings, I have to push the team further back. But the other day, you went and criticized my tactics instead of doing as I told you. You criticized me. You don't respect your teammates. You watch them run. You watch Pepe in last run, and all you do is raise your hands complaining if the ball doesn't reach you. I've invented a formation just for you, so that you're comfortable, don't have to run, and can't score goals. We play like this because of you. If I put you on Alves, you let him get away from you. And what, do you think Di Maria is a lesser player than you?" But do not be surprised. It's not the first time Ronaldo was shifted to center forward to cover for his defensive issues. Ferguson used to play Rooney on the wing of Champions League matches, since he knew Ronaldo wouldn't track his fullback. Dressing room problems also existed in Madrid. His boastful nature and self-centered personality on the pitch has caused him to be disliked by his teammates. He was given the nickname the Anxious One in Madrid, according to Diego Torres' book. Ronaldo was injured at one point before Real played away to Racing Santander. Some Madrid players hatched a plan. They said, "Now that the Anxious One isn't here, we're going to put in an incredible performance and see what his daddy says." Mourinho's pre-match talk knew of their scheme. "I already know you're going to put in a great performance because Cristiano isn't here." And they did play brilliantly and won 2-0, but Mourinho still chose to criticize them in the press as usual. In his return to United too, sources said Ronaldo bore a negative impact on the dressing room. The disruptive playstyle and personality serve as a closing statement for the pessimistic argument. Ronaldo indisputably guarantees you goals, but he also brings in numerous liabilities. Well, it certainly looks like Ronaldo does make teams worse, right? that the pessimists are correct, and any team would be better off without his goals. But not quite like it. No matter how good Ronaldo is on his own, his brilliance isn't always transferred to his teams. The Optimists fall short when faced with these issues, but that doesn't disqualify them in their views. Ronaldo gets results. That was never in question. So this implies that their ideas about Ronaldo weren't completely wrong, but that their arguments weren't presented in the right form. So what is the right form of argument for the Optimists? All these numbers, stats and derivatives came after Ronaldo left Madrid. In other words, after his peak years ended. They do not represent Ronaldo's career as a whole. With this in mind though, Ronaldo can't be blamed for every problem that followed him. It isn't his fault Juventus had a bad team building plan, or United failed to sign a defensive midfielder during his time. Nor is it his fault other players lost their form. He certainly can't be blamed for the individual defensive mistakes that cost his teams multiple times. Not everything is Ronaldo's fault. Let's explore the side of argument that pessimists overlook, the type of argument that the Optimists should present. Going back to the club ELO ratings, although his Juventus and United days presented a negative picture, his Madrid one is starkly different. On the contrary, Real Madrid's rating seems to be opposite of Ronaldo make teams worse. They had a major dip when Ronaldo signed in 2009, but soared high from his peak years of 2012 to 2017. The decline began during the 17-18 season, but then took a sharp decline down as soon as Ronaldo left. That implies that teams can certainly improve when he's present, but not only that, he can also be the cornerstone of teams too. But what about his defensive shortcomings? Dean Smith gave a perfect statement to that in April 2022, after Ronaldo scored a hat-trick against Norwich. I told my players at halftime, if you score me 20 goals to give me 15 assists, you wouldn't need to press as much. Going back to Real Madrid's club ELO ratings, it's observable that after the squad building period of 2009-2012, the club rose and soared high until 2017. Before the team had finished its life cycle, Ronaldo wasn't just a part of it, but a crucial leader in its success. He scored 304 goals in 294 games, topped off with 88 assists starting from 2012-2013. Sure, compromises had to be made, as Carlo Ancelotti did for the sake of Ronaldo. There's a story Ancelotti told during the summer of 2013, where he was devising a plan to play Ronaldo as a center forward in a 4-2-3-1 formation. He invited Ronaldo to forward his thoughts, but Ronaldo explained he's more comfortable playing inside from the left. Ancelotti didn't hesitate. All he said was, well, you have to be comfortable. That's the most important thing. Carlo then switched to a 4-3-3 with Ronaldo playing on the left wing. That season, Ronaldo scored 51 goals and gave 17 assists. He broke the records for the most goals in a single Champions League season with 17. Madrid won the Copa del Rey, broke the La Decima curse, and missed out on the league title by just 3 points, the closest they've ever gotten to a treble. And on the next season, he enjoyed what could be his most prolific season, scoring 61 goals and having 23 assists. The 2014-15 season unraveled right at the end, but Ancelotti showed how tailoring a system to one player can reap unprecedented rewards. Ferguson also treated Ronaldo differently, partly because he knew Cristiano was the best player he had ever managed, a point Sir Alex himself admitted. Ronaldo guided United to 3 consecutive league titles and back-to-back Champions League finals, one of the most successful eras in the club's history, and is the most recent Ballon d'Or winner in both United and the Premier League. The moral is, indulging Ronaldo paid off. By building a system to the level of Cristiano's satisfaction, you get the benefits of his finishing. Zidane captioned it splendidly. When you have Ronaldo in your team, you are already 1-0 up. When teams are built around Ronaldo, his liabilities become covered by his teammates, and he in turn gives them what they desperately need, a plethora of goals. So the arguments of the Optimists shouldn't have been, take Ronaldo's goals away and let's see where his team end up, but build a team around Ronaldo and the sky's the limit. Leonardo Bonucci conceded that. We were all playing with a great champion and wanted him to do well, so perhaps we lost the desire to all suffer and sacrifice all serve together, because we assumed he would sort it all out. Juventus never built a team around him, and that didn't turn out good for either parties. Juventus lost their status as the undisputed Serie A champions of the past decade in Italy, and Ronaldo ended up failing to achieve Champions League glory. And at United, everything imploded upon itself when Ronaldo arrived. After all, he was never going to instantly fit into the system. A new one had to be created, but that never happened. Perhaps he did disrupt their form, or they conceded that signing Ronaldo was the wrong decision. But he can't be the one to take all the blame. So with all that being said, does Ronaldo make teams better or worse? That's the paradox. Both the optimists and pessimists are correct based on the context. Build a proper team around Ronaldo for his sake, then yes, he makes teams better. The optimists win. Insert him into teams without a tailored squad for him randomly, and he ends up causing a disaster, and the pessimists win. He will provide goals at the cost of others, but gaslight you into thinking he is the only working factor, leaving you with a dysfunctional squad. The paradox exists when the context isn't considered. That's why the debate arose at Manchester United. He provided them with the goals they direly needed, but disrupted the balance of the team. Thierry Henry summed it up perfectly.
No, I totally agree, but the problem is when your poison is your medicine, you will struggle. Because you watch the game at the end, Ronaldo saved them. And I agree. But when they play, they're exposed sometimes because they don't defend as a unit. And we all know if you don't do that, Alex, right, you cannot win games. By the way, we're talking about winning the Champions League and winning the title in England, not finishing second, third, fourth, and going to the quarterfinals or semifinals. We're talking about winning. If you want to win, you all got to run.
In United's case, Ronaldo was the medicine for the poison he injected, the solution for the problem he caused. He provided United with goals, but ended up exposing them defensively. With that being said, are teams better off with or without Ronaldo now? Ronaldo is undisputably one of the best to have ever done it. His place is sealed in the Parthenon of football, as one of, if not the greatest of all time. But there's a huge difference between a 28-year-old Ronaldo and the 40-year-old we see now. Time has moved on. A lot has changed. He's not that player anymore. It's a hard-to-swallow pill. Sure, clubs and even Portugal could build a team around him by spending hundreds of millions. But is he really worth it at this point? Ronaldo has entered his twilight years of his career. He is no longer in his prime, and the clock is ticking day by day on his illustrious career. He doesn't have much left. So, is it really worth it to build a team around an aging lion when the young cubs are just getting ready to roar? He's nearly 40. Even if you manage to get 4 more years out of him, he's still not even close to his better days by a long shot. The transfer to Al Nassr seems to have given that answer for Europe. He can enjoy his final few years playing football in the sunny atmosphere, racking up hundreds of millions. But the question still arises for Portugal. European football moved on. Maybe it's time for them to do the same. But in the end, for all the drama, Ronaldo is one of the best to have ever played the game. And exit the Cristiano Paradox.